Hey guys, today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started. Moniruz Zaman and Momtaz Begum were married in the late 1980s in Bangladesh. The young couple decided to leave their homeland and move to Canada, hoping to build for themselves and their future children a life that was stable and secure. The move was a leap into the unknown. Ahead lay a foreign country, a new language, and no nearby family. Yet they believed that in Canada, they could build a home where their sons and daughters would receive the education and opportunities they themselves never had. The couple settled in the city of Markham in the province of Ontario. Moniruz found work as a taxi driver with Beck Taxi. He was known for his hard work and integrity, often taking extra shifts to save up for their own house. His colleagues and management respected him, and he was frequently named Employee of the Month. Momtaz managed the household. She was actively involved in local charitable efforts, preparing meals for those in need, helping neighbors, and maintaining close ties with the Muslim community in the city. In 1996, the couple welcomed their first child, a son named Menhaz. The parents pinned great hopes on him, dreaming he would become an engineer. 2 years later, the family expanded with the arrival of their daughter, Malaysa. For Moniruz and Momtaz, their son and daughter became the central focus of their lives, and all efforts were dedicated to their upbringing and education. A few years after the children were born, Momtaz's mother, Firoza Begum, moved from Bangladesh to Canada. She quickly became an integral part of the family, helping raise the children, preserving traditions, and encouraging a respectful appreciation for the family's roots. The family lived in a spacious house on Castlemore Avenue, in a quiet residential neighborhood of Markham. They were known as friendly, generous individuals, always ready to lend a hand. Their home was often full of guests, and holiday dinners brought together relatives and neighbors. Each family member had a distinct personality. Moniruz was restrained and disciplined, serious about his responsibilities, but also gentle with his son and daughter. Momtaz was social and caring, easily connecting with others, and skilled at resolving disagreements. Firoza kept the authority of the elder generation, raising her grandchildren with values of respect for their elders and commitment to religious traditions. Menhaz grew up quiet and introverted, preferring time at home. His parents saw him as disciplined and obedient, a child who didn't cause much trouble. Malaysa, in contrast, was outgoing and social, easily making friends, which sometimes caused her parents concern, especially when discussing her teenage mischief. Despite their children's different personalities, Moniruz and Momtaz placed equal faith in their futures, hoping their son would become an engineer and their daughter would become a doctor. By the mid-2010s, the Zamans felt they had achieved everything they had dreamed of when they moved to Canada. No one around them could suspect that behind the facade of well-being, circumstances were brewing that would lead to one of the most shocking tragedies in the city's history. Markham is a suburb of Toronto, located in the province of Ontario. It's one of Canada's fastest-growing cities with a consistently high standard of living and a thriving economy. The city hosts offices of major international companies, including IBM, Huawei, Honda, and Toshiba. Markham is considered a regional tech hub, making it attractive to professionals and immigrant families seeking stability and opportunity. Markham is home to a highly diverse population. Over 65% of residents are originally from Asian countries, including China, India, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. This cultural variety is visible in every aspect of life, from architecture and cuisine to community events and places of worship. Officially recognized as the most multicultural city in Canada, Markham celebrates its diversity openly. The Zaman family lived in a quiet, low-rise residential neighborhood on Castlemore Avenue. The area was peaceful and well kept, with smooth sidewalks, green lawns, and homes where neighbors looked out for one another. From a young age, Zaman showed little interest in social interaction. He had very few friends throughout elementary and high school. After classes, he would head straight home, spending nearly all his free time on the computer. Video games became his main and eventually only consistent interest. As he got older, he increasingly immersed himself in virtual worlds, seeing them as safe spaces where he didn't have to meet anyone's expectations. He completed high school without major failures, but also without standing out. Teachers described him as quiet and unremarkable. His younger sister, Zaman, was his complete opposite. Outgoing and cheerful, she began showing signs of independence during her teenage years. She experimented with alcohol, used marijuana, and secretly dated, behaviors that clashed with the family's religious and cultural values. These actions caused tension, especially with their father. Moniruz, holding traditional views, saw his daughter's behavior as unacceptable. This led to frequent and serious family disputes. Despite these issues, Melissa maintained a connection with her family. Beneath her independent nature, she remained close with her mother. Momtaz, known for her gentle demeanor, always tried to ease the tension and preserve peace at home. She had a talent for listening, understanding her daughter without harsh judgment. Her approach often helped calm the household after conflicts. Unlike his sister, Menhaz never engaged in open disagreements. He stayed within behavioral expectations and appeared to be a compliant son. Yet behind this image was a lack of initiative, no social activity, and an absence of genuine interest in anything outside his gaming routine. He kept his thoughts to himself and never spoke about his inner world. Melissa, despite the ups and downs of adolescence, maintained strong academic performance and eventually enrolled in university. Her achievements brought pride to her parents, affirming their belief that their efforts were worthwhile. They saw her rebellious side as just a passing phase. Momtaz, in particular, continued to support her daughter without increasing pressure. The family placed strong emphasis on education. However, differences in personality and how each sibling responded to expectations became increasingly evident. While Melissa saw conflict as something she could work through, Menhaz withdrew further, disappearing into a digital life free from obligations, deadlines, or demands. So, in one household grew two vastly different young people, each with a unique worldview, communication style, and way of handling stress. Their paths diverged so dramatically that it would eventually play a critical role in a tragedy no one could have anticipated. After high school, Menhaz told his parents he had been accepted into the engineering program at York University. He spoke confidently about his major, claimed to attend lectures regularly, and even mentioned receiving a scholarship. His parents believed he was on the path to a successful career and proudly shared his supposed accomplishments with friends and neighbors. The reality was very different. Menhaz had spent only a year at Seneca College in an electronics engineering program before dropping out. His grades were poor, and he had lost the motivation to continue. Instead of coming clean, he chose to keep up the illusion. Every morning, Menhaz left the house carrying a backpack, giving the impression that he was heading to class. In reality, he would take a bus to Marville Mall, located not far from the university. This helped him maintain the appearance of a college student. There was no reason for his parents to question his story. He spent hours in the mall, either wandering around or sitting with his laptop. Sometimes he'd even visit the campus gym to reinforce the illusion of student life. The system he created allowed him to keep the truth hidden for years. He planned everything down to the smallest detail, from his class schedule to the supposed date of his graduation ceremony. When his parents asked about exams, he assured them everything was going according to plan. There was even talk of an upcoming graduation. He gave a specific date, July 28, 2019. By that time, his deception had been going on for nearly 3 years. While keeping this secret, Menhaz grew increasingly detached from reality. His days were empty. He wasn't working, studying, or making any future plans. All of his time was spent gaming and chatting online. His behavior remained calm. He didn't cause arguments, and he showed no signs of aggression. That's what made everything so misleading. His parents still saw him as the quiet son he had always been. During this time, he lived under intense pressure, from the guilt building up inside and the fear of letting his family down. On the surface, though, he appeared unchanged, silent, composed, and steady. No one suspected that behind that calm exterior was someone who had already made a decision. His main connection to the outside world became Discord, a popular online platform where users gather in communities based on shared interests. He joined a private server called Perfect World Void, named after a multiplayer online game. Over time, he became an active member there, chatting daily with players from around the world. In that virtual space, he felt more at ease than in real life, where he often felt isolated. He engaged with the group regularly, joking, talking about games, and even opening up about his thoughts. At first, he was known for his sarcastic but clever humor, including dark jokes and self-deprecation, something generally accepted in that environment. However, over time, his posts began to take a darker tone. He started expressing anger and posting offensive comments, especially toward the religion he had been raised in. His anti-faith and racially charged remarks led to a temporary ban on July 11, 2019, after repeated violations. One of the moderators removed him from the server following complaints about toxic behavior. Later, the same moderator lifted the ban, explaining that he did so out of sympathy. Menhaz had reportedly apologized and asked for a second chance. Knowing he had no real-life friends, the moderator allowed him back. That decision kept Menhaz involved in the community, where he continued participating in conversations. Within the server, he formed a small circle of online acquaintances from countries like Canada, the US, Israel, Egypt, Romania, and Tunisia. They knew him by his username, Menas. Some saw him as a provocateur or troll, while others thought his behavior was eccentric but not threatening. He often made comments that sounded like jokes, even when they pushed boundaries. Gradually, he began introducing darker topics, mentioning self-harm and aggressive behavior. He talked about depression, said he had lost his faith, and identified as an atheist. But in an environment where shocking statements were common, these remarks didn't raise serious concern. In truth, Menhaz was laying the groundwork. He was observing how people reacted to his words. He was testing boundaries, seeing how far he could go before anyone would take him seriously. He spoke about death and asked hypothetical questions about how others might react if he did something awful. These conversations were framed as what-if scenarios, part of a game. No one realized at the time that he was being literal. On the morning of July 27, 2019, Menhaz Zaman posted a message on the Discord server Perfect World Void, stating that he was planning to commit a crime against his own family. The wording was blunt. He mentioned an intent to harm his parents and then turn himself in to authorities. Other members on the server responded with skepticism. Some ignored the message, while others assumed it was just another dark joke in line with his usual online persona. Menhaz remained active throughout the day. He kept chatting with several users, including those using the names John and Nicole. In the messages, he said everything had been planned in advance. He referenced July 28th as the supposed date of his college graduation and admitted he could no longer keep up the lie. He emphasized that he saw no other way out and wanted to follow through with his plan. Despite his calm tone, some users began to grow concerned. A user named John from Egypt tried to get a clearer understanding of the situation, asking Menhaz whether he was serious. But Menhaz stayed composed and coldly confirmed his statements. He didn't sound agitated or aggressive. His messages were emotionless and methodical. A few users discussed the situation in a private channel on the server. Opinions were divided. Some insisted this was just a crude joke, while others started to suspect it might actually be real this time. But they had no information about Menhaz beyond his screen name. No one knew his real name, address, or even the city he lived in. One user noticed that Menhaz's tone had taken on a farewell quality. He wasn't asking for sympathy or support. He was simply stating what he believed to be an inevitable conclusion to a plan he had been developing for 3 years. In an attempt to change his mind, some of his online acquaintances tried to reason with him. They encouraged him to delay any decisions and suggested talking to his parents. One person wrote, "They'll be disappointed, but they won't abandon you." When asked whether he was afraid of the consequences, Menhaz responded that he was prepared to face life in prison if he carried out his plan. He implied that, from his perspective, his actions made sense, even calling them the right thing to do. He explained that he didn't want his parents to suffer from learning the truth about his deception. According to him, this was the main reason behind his decision. Several users began trying to uncover personal information about Menhaz. There was talk of tracing his IP address or finding other identifying details through Discord. But up until the moment he acted, he had not revealed any concrete information about his location. In public chats, he had never mentioned his city, country, or school. Throughout the day, his tone never changed. He continued chatting calmly, sometimes engaging in normal conversations, only to return to his initial claims. This switching between casual talk and shocking statements left people confused. Even those who were worried weren't sure how to react. A few users decided to wait until the next morning to see if his words would turn into actions. On the morning of July 27, 2019, everything appeared normal at the Zaman family home on Kashmir Court. Menhaz had chosen this Saturday intentionally. He knew his mother would be home that day and that his grandmother would arrive later. According to his plan, this timing gave him a window in which he wouldn't have to rush. His mother, Momtaz Begum, was the first to return home. According to Menhaz himself, he met her at the entrance, led her inside, and struck her with a hammer. He struck her several times, targeting her head. The woman died on the spot. She was 50 years old. Immediately after that, he moved the body to the basement, where he laid it face down and covered it with a sheet. Then he cleaned up the bloodstains in the hallway and kitchen, changed his clothes, and sat down at the computer. A few minutes later, he logged into Discord and told the server participants that he had just killed his mother. This message caused a storm of reactions. Some took it as a joke, others asked for proof. In response, Menhaz sent a photo of his mother's body. He continued chatting in his usual manner, without emotional outbursts or panic. He explained that the time had come and that everything was going according to plan. After a while, he added, "Waiting for Grandma." Feroza Begum was supposed to arrive later, as she usually did on weekends. She was 70 years old. When his grandmother entered the house, he did not delay. Death came quickly. He also carried her body to the basement and placed it next to his mother's body. On Discord, he reported 2 and sent another photo showing both bodies. Several users began to panic seriously. They asked him to stop and asked if they could contact the police. Menhaz ignored such questions, continuing to correspond in the same tone. He commented on what was happening as if it were something ordinary. After the 2 murders, he did not try to leave or hide. He changed his clothes again, washed his hands, sat down at the computer, and continued the chat. He assured everyone that he felt normal and that there was no tension. One of the participants asked how he could be so calm. Menhaz replied, "I've been preparing for this for 3 years." He showed no signs of fear. He remained online for several hours. With breaks, he took notes, commented on his actions, and discussed details. He said he chose a hammer because it's quick and quiet. He was already waiting for his sister and father to return. Late in the evening, he finished cleaning up. His hands were already covered in blood up to his elbows, but his voice in the chat did not tremble. He still remained on the server as the user Minas, cold, calculating, calm. That day was the first phase of his plan. None of the neighbors suspected anything. The house remained quiet, the street as deserted as usual. On the evening of July 27th, 2019, Moni Ruz, Menhaz's father, returned to the Zaman family home. He worked night shifts as an electrician at a local transportation company, but on that day, his shift was shortened. Menhaz waited for his father to arrive. He chose the moment when Moni Ruz had walked deeper into the house and attacked him from behind, using the same hammer. The strikes were aimed at the back of the head and neck. Afterward, he dragged the body into the basement and placed it next to the others. Moni Ruz was 59 years old. He was the only family member still working outside the home. In the chat, Menhaz explained that his father had placed the greatest hopes on him, believing his son would become an engineer, graduate from technical college, and build a successful career in the field. According to Menhaz, the idea of confessing the truth to his father felt especially devastating. That, he claimed, was part of the reason he decided to act before the truth could come out. Immediately after, he sent another photo to the Discord server. Some users were in shock. One of them wrote, "That's the third," to which Menhaz calmly responded, "Yes." He also added that his father had been in the house for less than a minute before the attack. He remained at his computer, barely stepping away from the screen over the next several hours. The next day, his sister Melissa was expected to return. In the chat, Menhaz shared that he planned to finish everything tomorrow. Melissa had been away for the weekend and was expected to come home around midday. She was 21, a university student, interested in fashion, and active on social media. When she walked into the house, Menhaz met her at the entrance. He used the same tactic as before, swift strikes with the hammer to the head. Her death was nearly instantaneous. He moved her to the basement, placed her next to the others, carefully covered her with a sheet, and returned to his room. In Discord, he wrote a single word, "Done." Then he sent a fourth photo. The image confirmed that the last family member had been killed. One of the users started searching for any personal information about him. People began combing through old messages and photos, trying to trace his possible location. Only after all 4 of his relatives had been killed did he finally reveal his identity. His name was Menhaz Zaman, and he lived in Markham, Ontario. After killing his sister, Menhaz sat quietly for a while. The house was completely silent. Literally. The scene had been completed, but he later said he didn't yet feel a sense of finality. He calmly watched the chat. He told the group that he didn't plan to hide or run. He said he would call the authorities himself. When asked whether he had changed his mind, he replied, "No. Everything I wanted to do, I've done." He cleared his browser history, deleted some files from his computer, and even rearranged furniture in his room. He intended to contact emergency services anonymously, providing the address without giving his name. But by that point, the Discord members had already gathered enough information to alert emergency responders themselves. One of them wrote that he had passed the information on to the Canadian authorities. Shortly afterwards, Menhaz wrote, "Okay, then I'll just wait." He opened Discord again, looked at the photos he had sent earlier, and wrote nothing more. A few hours later, there was a knock at the door. It was the police. He opened the door without resistance. He was arrested on the spot. The bodies of 4 family members were found in the basement. Everything matched the description in the correspondence. After the arrest, Discord members discussed what had happened for several more days. Most of them felt shock and guilt. Some wrote that they could have intervened earlier, others that they didn't believe what was happening. After his arrest, Menhaz was taken to the York Regional Police Department station. On the way, he asked no questions, showed no fear, and offered no resistance. The officers noted his calmness. At the station, he was stripped, photographed, and placed in a separate cell. He asked for neither food nor water and made no phone calls. The interrogation began a few hours later. It was conducted by 2 investigators. When asked if he knew why he was there, Menhaz replied briefly, yes. He was warned of his right to remain silent, but he refused. Unlike most suspects, he was willing to talk without a lawyer. Menhaz described in detail what had happened. He confirmed the murder of all 4 relatives and recounted the sequence of events, how he had waited for each of them. He also admitted that he had planned the crime in advance and that it was not an impulsive act. Menhaz claimed that he felt guilt, but no remorse. Investigators asked why he shared photos of the bodies on the internet. Menhaz replied that he wanted to be honest, at least with those he talked to online. He called them his only real friends. One of the officers noted in his report, he did not try to justify himself. He showed no anger or hysteria. Everything had been decided in advance. At the end of the interrogation, Menhaz signed a written confession. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. He knew that in Canada, this meant life imprisonment without parole for at least 25 years. To this, he said, okay. After Menhaz's story became public, the participants of the Discord server where he had been chatting found themselves in the spotlight. Screenshots of chats, photos, and text confessions quickly began to spread across the internet. The server he was on had been created long before the murders. It was a small community united by an interest in internet culture and gaming. No one took the communication seriously, and most of the participants had never met each other. Discord deleted the server within 24 hours of the arrest, but by that point, most of the correspondence had already been saved. Screenshots and photos began to spread on Reddit, Twitter, 4chan, and Telegram channels. Dozens of discussions, theories, and attempts to reconstruct the events appeared. Menhaz's activity on other platforms also came under scrutiny. His accounts on Steam, Reddit, Discord, and Facebook revealed signs that he had been living a double life for quite some time. One post in particular drew attention. It included the phrase, "When the truth comes out, I don't want them to suffer." Many people involved in the online discussions later said that if they had noticed that message earlier, perhaps the tragedy could have been prevented. Canadian authorities working with Discord and other platforms carried out digital data extractions. According to official reports, his online messages and activity became key pieces of evidence in the investigation. The internet had preserved a detailed timeline of the crime, including his motives and mental state. It became a rare case where real-world violence was documented in real time through online commentary. News of the tragedy in Markham spread quickly. Media outlets reported that 4 family members had lost their lives inside a home on Castlemore Avenue. At first, little was known about what happened, but soon the suspect's name was released. Menhaz Zaman, the son of one of the victims. Neighbors who heard about the incident were in disbelief. One man said, "We greeted each other every day." His mother always smiled. "I can't imagine a son doing something like this." Relatives of the family, many of whom lived outside of Canada, were devastated. Close family members traveled from Bangladesh to help arrange the funerals. A farewell ceremony was held with the support of the local Muslim community. The event was quiet and private. No cameras or media were allowed. Family members requested that their grief be respected. Leaders from the community offered brief statements. The imam from the mosque the family attended said, "We are shocked. This is a tremendous loss. We pray for the souls of those we've lost." In the aftermath, neighbors and friends left flowers in front of the Zaman home. Online, people started memorial initiatives. Some suggested raising funds to support surviving relatives, but most donations ended up going to charities focused on mental health support. Police had cordoned off the property with tape as forensic investigations took place inside. A few weeks later, authorities transferred the house to the family's legal heirs. The neighborhood, once considered peaceful and secure, was now marked by a horrific event. One neighbor told reporters, "Nothing like this has ever happened here before. Now, this place will never feel the same." Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.